Captain Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the starship New Dawn and watched the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. The year was 2157, and this was humanity's first real journey to a distant star system after 50 years of building better rockets and fusion engines. Humans had finally reached the Kepler 442 system, which was 47 light-years from Earth. The planet below looked perfect for a new human colony. It had oceans and land masses and an atmosphere that could support human life. The initial scans showed no signs of intelligent life, which made it ideal for their mission. Kim Tae-ho had been chosen to lead this historic expedition because of his steady leadership and calm decision-making. He had served in the Earth Space Navy for 20 years and had never lost a crew member under his command standing. Beside him was Park So-ra, the ship's chief engineer. She was only 32 years old, but already considered one of the brightest minds in human space technology. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes never stopped moving as she checked readings on multiple screens. She had designed many of the New Dawn's advanced systems herself, including the revolutionary fusion drive that made this journey possible. At the tactical station sat Lee Min-ho, a former military pilot who had volunteered for this mission to see what lay beyond Earth's solar system. He was tall and lean with quick reflexes and an ability to stay calm under pressure. His job was to protect the ship and crew from any dangers they might encounter in deep space. Though they expected no threats on this peaceful mission, his training and instincts were always alert. Tr. Choi Hae-jin worked at the science station, analyzing everything the ship's sensors detected about their new world. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied the possibility of alien life forms. Her equipment could detect even the smallest microorganisms from orbit, and so far everything looked normal. The planet had plant life and simple animals, but nothing that seemed intelligent or dangerous. The New Dawn carried 300 colonists in suspended animation, along with everything needed to build humanity's first interstellar settlement. They had food supplies, manufacturing equipment, building materials, and seeds for crops. The mission was planned to last 10 years, during which time they would establish a permanent base and prepare for more colonists to follow. Kim Tae-ho gave the order to begin orbital surveys. They needed to map the entire planet and choose the best location for their new colony. The ship's advanced sensors began taking detailed pictures and measurements of the surface. They looked for mineral deposits, fresh water sources, and areas with good soil for farming. After 3 days of surveys, Park So-ra noticed something strange in the sensor data. There were unusual metal signatures deep underground in several locations across the planet. The readings were too regular to be natural formations and too deep to be surface ruins. Lee Min-ho suggested they investigate these anomalies before choosing a colony site. Dr. Choi was excited by the discovery. If there were artificial structures on the planet, it would be the first proof that intelligent aliens had existed somewhere other than Earth. Even if they were long-dead ruins, the scientific value would be enormous. She convinced Kim Tae-ho to send down a survey team to investigate. They chose a site in the northern continent, where the metal signatures were strongest. The area was a vast plain covered with purple grass-like plants and scattered rock formations. It looked peaceful and empty, but the sensors insisted there was something large and artificial buried 200 meters below the surface. The survey team consisted of 12 people, including Kim Tae-ho, Park So-ra, and Dr. Choi. They took a shuttle down to the planet's surface and set up drilling equipment. To reach the underground structure, the work was slow and difficult because they had to be careful not to damage whatever they might find. In the 4th day of drilling, they broke through into a hollow space. The drill brought up samples of processed metal and what looked like crystalline materials. Dr. Choi was amazed because the crystals seemed to contain organic compounds, suggesting they might be preserved biological specimens. They lowered cameras into the hole, and what they saw changed everything. The space below was enormous, stretching for kilometers in every direction. It was filled with row after row of transparent containers, each one holding what appeared to be the preserved remains of different alien creatures. Kim Tae-ho felt his blood turn cold as he realized what they had discovered. This was not an ancient ruin, it was a storage facility, and the creatures inside were not fossils. They were perfectly preserved specimens of dozens of different intelligent species. Each container held complete beings along with examples of their technology, art, and culture. Dr. Choi began analyzing the specimens with portable equipment and made a horrifying discovery. All of these species had reached roughly the same level of technological development. Each one had achieved spaceflight, developed fusion power, and begun exploring their local star systems. Then they had all been harvested at exactly that point in their evolution. The preservation technology was beyond anything humans had ever seen. The specimens looked like they had been stored yesterday rather than thousands or millions of years ago. Each species was labeled with symbols that seemed to indicate their home star system and the date they were collected. The most recent specimens were only a few hundred years old. Park Sora found control systems that were still active. When she managed to interface with them using the ship's computer, she discovered records that made her hands shake with fear. The facility was automated and connected to a vast network of similar sites across the galaxy. It was operated by something called the Vorthak. Records showed that the Vorthak had been systematically hunting and harvesting intelligent species for millions of years. They waited for each species to develop space travel, then moved in to capture specimens and destroy the rest. This facility alone contained the remains of 47 different civilizations. As Dr. Choi studied the data, she realized that humanity fit the exact profile of all the previous victims. Every species that had been harvested had followed the same pattern of development. They had achieved fusion power, built interstellar ships, and sent out colony missions exactly like the New Dawn. Lee Min-ho was monitoring communications when he detected something that made everyone freeze. Massive ships were moving toward the Kepler system from deep space. The vessels were huge, much larger than anything humans had ever built, and they were heading directly for the planet where the New Dawn was orbiting. Kim Tae-ho ordered immediate preparations for departure, but Park Sora discovered that their fusion drive had been damaged during landing. The ship could reach orbit, but could not make the jump to hyperspace. They were trapped in the system with unknown hostile aliens approaching. Dr. Choi worked frantically to copy as much data as possible from the alien facility, while Park Sora tried to repair the drive systems. Lee Min-ho prepared the ship's weapons, though they were designed for asteroid mining rather than combat. The 300 sleeping colonists remained unaware that their dream of a new world had become a nightmare. The alien ships grew closer. Kim Tae-ho made a desperate decision. They would send a message drone back to Earth with all the data they had discovered. Even if the New Dawn was captured or destroyed, humanity needed to know what was coming. The Vorthak had been watching Earth and waiting for humans to develop space travel. Harvest of humanity was about to begin, and these ancient predators had no idea that they were about to encounter something very different from their previous victims. They expected another easy collection of specimens for their cosmic museum. Instead, they were going to meet a species that had spent its entire history learning one thing very well: how to fight back. Admiral Yoon Ji-woo was having her morning coffee in the Earth Defense Command Center when the emergency alarm started screaming. The message from the New Dawn had just arrived after traveling 47 light-years through space, and what it contained made her hands shake as she read the decoded transmission. The message was fragmented and damaged from the long journey, but the key parts were clear. Humanity was being hunted by an ancient alien race called the Vorthak. These creatures had been harvesting intelligent species for millions of years, and Earth was next on their list. The New Dawn had discovered their collection facility, and now massive alien ships were moving toward human space. Admiral Yoon had spent 30 years preparing for the possibility of hostile alien contact, but she had always imagined it would be a first contact scenario with negotiations and diplomacy. This was something completely different. The aliens were not coming to talk, they were coming to harvest humans like crop. She immediately activated Protocol Omega, a top-secret plan that had been developed in case Earth ever faced an existential threat. Every military base on Earth, Luna, Mars, and the asteroid colonies received the same message. Humanity was at war, and every resource would be dedicated to survival. Within 6 hours, the entire solar system transformed into a fortress. Earth stopped all civilian production and converted every factory to produce weapons, ammunition, and military Equipment. The massive orbital shipyards that normally built cargo vessels and passenger liners began welding armor plating and weapon systems onto anything that could fly on. Luna Base Commander Park Dong-min received orders to convert the mass driver used for launching cargo to Earth into a massive kinetic weapon. The electromagnetic launcher could accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds, and with some modifications, it could throw chunks of metal at any target in the solar system. The Mars colonies under Director Kim Yeon-soo began producing chemical explosives and rocket fuel around the clock. Their manufacturing facilities had been designed to support terraforming operations, but could easily be converted to military production. The Red Planet became a giant ammunition factory. Admiral Yoon knew that human technology was primitive compared to what the Vorthok possessed, but she also knew something the aliens did not. Humans had spent their entire history fighting wars against each other. They had learned to be creative, resourceful, and absolutely ruthless when their survival was at stake. Dr. Nam Seok-jin led a team of scientists. Analyzing every piece of data from the New Dawn transmission, they studied the alien technology. Looking for weaknesses in the Vorthok systems, the biomechanical ships seemed powerful, but they followed organic patterns that could be predicted and exploited. The first Vorthok ships appeared at the edge of the solar system 3 weeks after the warning arrived. They were massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to grow rather than being built. Each ship was the size of a small city, and they moved through space like living creatures. War Commander Thex led the Vorthok harvest fleet. From his flagship, a bioship called the Devourer, he had personally overseen 43 previous harvests and expected this one to follow the same pattern. The target species would panic when they saw the Vorthok ships, then either surrender immediately or put up token resistance before being overwhelmed. The harvest of humanity should have been simple. The species had barely achieved interstellar travel, and their technology was crude compared to Vorthok bioengineering. Their ships were small, primitive metal constructs that posed no real threat to the organic vessels of the harvest. Fleethex sent his standard message to Earth. Through powerful transmitters on his ship, the words were translated into the primitive human language and broadcast across their entire planet. Submit for harvest. Resistance will only bring suffering. The message had worked on thousands of worlds before, but the response from Earth was something Vex had never encountered in millions of years of harvests. Instead of panic or pleas for mercy, the humans sent back a single short message that confused every Vorthok commander who heard it. Come and take us. Admiral Yoon had spent the 3 weeks since the warning arrived turning the solar system into a death trap. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with explosives. Mining ships were loaded with nuclear warheads and programmed for suicide runs against alien vessels. The outer planets became weapons platforms. Jupiter had orbital missile batteries. Hidden among its moons, Saturn was surrounded by clouds of metallic debris that would shred any ship trying to pass through. The asteroid belt was seeded with remote-controlled bombs, waiting for alien ships to come close. When the Vorthok fleet began moving toward the inner system, they expected to encounter primitive orbital defenses around Earth. Instead, they found something that made War Commander Thex pause in confusion. The entire solar system seemed to be a weapon pointed at them. The first Vorthok scout ships entered the asteroid belt and immediately came under attack from hidden human vessels. The aliens expected the humans to fight like previous species with large fleets, meeting in open space for formal battles. Instead, they found themselves facing hit and run attacks from ships that appeared, fought briefly, and then disappeared. Commander Lim Dae-yoon led the first human attack from a converted cargo hauler called the Angry Bee. Her ship had been loaded with mining explosives and equipped with the most powerful engines available. When a Vorthok bio ship moved into range, she accelerated directly at it and detonated her cargo bay. The explosion tore a massive hole in the alien vessel's hull and killed thousands of Vorthok crew members. It was the first time in the species' history that a harvest target had actually damaged one of their ships. The bioship tried to regenerate its damaged sections, but the humans had mixed radioactive materials with their explosives. Dar Nam Seok-jin had discovered that the Vorthok bioships healed damage using organic processes similar to living tissue. But like living tissue, they could be poisoned. The radioactive contamination prevented the alien ship from healing, and slowly spread through its organic systems. More human ships attacked using the same tactics. Converted mining vessels, industrial ships, and even passenger liners that had been hastily armed with weapons. They struck fast and hard, then retreated before the Vorthak could respond effectively. Each attack taught the humans more about alien weaknesses. Commander Thex watched his scouts being destroyed by primitive ships that should have been easily defeated. The humans were using tactics he had never seen before. They treated their own vessels as expendable weapons and seemed to have no fear of death in battle. The bioships were designed to fight other advanced civilizations with formal military doctrines and predictable strategies. They were not prepared for opponents who turned garbage haulers into guided missiles or who hid weapons inside asteroids disguised as natural rocks on Earth. Admiral Yoon monitored the battle from her command center and smiled grimly. The first phase of humanity defense was working. The aliens had expected to harvest a peaceful civilization. Instead, they had found a species that turned everything into a weapon. The Vorthak had made their first critical mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. Their second mistake was assuming that humans would fight like their previous victims, but the biggest mistake was yet to come. They had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping since the species first learned to use tools, the instinct to protect their young, their territory, and their future at any cost, even if it burning down the galaxy to do it. War Commander Thex sent a message back to the Vorthak homeworld requesting reinforcements. For the first time in his long career, he was facing prey that might actually be dangerous. He had no idea that he was about to discover just how dangerous humans could be when someone threatened everything they loved. News of humanity resistance against the Vorthak traveled through the galaxy like wildfire. For millions of years, alien species had whispered about the harvest ships in fear. Believing that resistance was impossible, the Vorthak seemed like gods of death who could not be stopped or even fought. But now something unprecedented was happening. The humans were not just fighting back, they were actually winning battles against the Harvest fleet. Captured Vorthak communications revealed growing panic among the alien commanders who had never experienced serious resistance before. On the prison world of Keth, thousands of survivors from previously harvested species gathered around hidden communication devices to listen to reports from the Sol system. The Vorthak had kept these beings alive as specimens and workers, but had never bothered to guard them carefully because escape seemed impossible. Engineer Ko Yunbai had been captured during one of the first skirmishes when her mining ship was overwhelmed by Vorthak biovessels. She had spent 3 months in alien prison facilities, studying their technology and looking for weaknesses. Now she was leading a prisoner revolt inspired by news of human victories. Ko and her fellow prisoners had discovered that the Vorthak prison systems were designed to hold species that had given up hope. The alien guards were few in number and relied on the belief that escape was pointless because there was nowhere to run in Vorthak-controlled space. But the human resistance had changed everything. If one species could fight the Vorthak and win, then maybe others could do the same. Ko began broadcasting messages to other prison worlds using captured alien equipment, encouraging survivors to rise up against their captors. Her broadcasts reached prison facilities across 12 star systems, and the effect was immediate. Species that had been passive for centuries began organizing resistance movements. They sabotaged Vorthak equipment, freed other prisoners, and in some cases captured entire facilities. The Vorthak Empire had been built on fear and the assumption that advanced species were naturally peaceful. The aliens had never prepared for simultaneous uprisings across multiple worlds. Their security forces were overwhelmed by revolts they had never imagined possible. Back in human space, Major An Wu Jin was leading special forces teams on increasingly bold missions against Vorthak supply lines. His commandos used captured alien ships to infiltrate enemy territory and strike at facilities far from the main battle zones, and had discovered that the Vorthak bioships required regular supplies of organic nutrients to maintain their living components. The aliens had established supply depots throughout human space, expecting a quick harvest operation that would not strain their logistics. Human strike teams began attacking these supply stations using guerrilla tactics learned from centuries of human warfare. They would strike quickly, destroy the facility, and disappear before Vorthek reinforcements could arrive. The alien fleet began running short of essential supplies. The psychological impact was even more important than the military damage. Every successful human attack proved that the Vorthak were not invincible gods, but merely another enemy that could be outfought and outhot by determined opponents. On Earth, Dr. Namseo Jin made a breakthrough discovery while studying captured Vorthak neural tissue. The aliens used biological computers to control their ships, and these organic systems could be infected with modified Earth viruses that humans had engineered for the purpose. The virus did not kill Vorthak crew members, but it disrupted their neural interfaces and made it impossible for them to control their bioships. Effectively, infected vessels would drift helplessly in space or sometimes even attack their own allies. Human medical teams led by Dr. Kim Hae-young began mass-producing the neural virus and loading it into specially designed missiles that could penetrate Vorthak bio-armor. The infected ships became a growing problem for the alien fleet as the virus spread from vessel to vessel. War Commander Thex found himself fighting a war unlike anything in Vorthak history. His enemies used tactics that had never been seen before. They infected his ships with biological weapons, turned his own technology against him, and inspired revolts throughout his empire. The humans were also proving to be dangerously innovative in combining alien technology with their own equipment. Human engineers studied every piece of captured Vorthak equipment and found ways to integrate it with human systems, creating hybrid weapons that neither species could have built alone. Captain Lee Sun-mi commanded a squadron of hybrid fighters that used Vorthak bio-armor combined with human weapon systems. Her ships were faster and tougher than pure human vessels, but more maneuverable than pure Vorthak bioships. They represented something new in galactic warfare. The effectiveness of human hybrid technology convinced other species that the Vorthak could not only be defeated, but that their technology could be turned against them. Prison revolts became more successful as alien survivors learned to modify captured Vorthak equipment. Sub-Coordinator Vex was one of the regional Vorthak commanders dealing with spreading rebellions across his territory. He sent increasingly desperate messages to the Central Command requesting massive reinforcements to deal with uprisings that seemed to grow stronger every day. The Vorthak military had been designed to harvest individual worlds, not to fight a galaxy-wide insurgency. Their forces were spread across thousands of systems and could not be concentrated quickly enough to deal with simultaneous revolts everywhere. More importantly, the revolts were being coordinated by human communications technology that the aliens could not easily intercept or decode. Ko Yunbai and other human prisoners had established a galactic resistance network that shared tactics, equipment, and intelligence. The network allowed successful resistance techniques to spread rapidly from one world to another. Prison breaks that worked on one planet were quickly adapted for use on other worlds. Sabotage methods developed by one species were shared with survivors of different alien races. For the first time in galactic history, the Vorthak were facing organized opposition rather than individual resistance. The humans had not just saved themselves, they had created a template for galactic revolution that other species could follow. The psychological impact on the Vorthak themselves was devastating. Many alien commanders had never imagined that their empire could be challenged. Individual bioships began defecting rather than face human resistance. Some Vorthak crew members started questioning the morality of harvesting other species. The million-year-old Vorthak Empire was cracking under pressure it had never been designed to handle. The aliens had built their civilization on the assumption that they were natural predators and other species were natural prey. Now that assumption was being challenged everywhere. Admiral Yoon received reports from across human space showing that the resistance was spreading faster than anyone had hoped. Alien refugees were arriving at human colonies, asking for weapons and training to fight the Vorthak. On their own worlds, she realized that humanity had accomplished something far more important than just defending Earth. They had proven that the Vorthak Empire was not eternal. The galaxy was waking up from millions of years of fear, and the awakening was turning into an avalanche. The fire of rebellion that started with human defiance was spreading across the stars and burning away an empire that had seemed invincible. War Commander Thex and his Harvest fleet were no longer just fighting humans. They were fighting hope itself, and hope was proving to be the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. War Commander Thex decided to end the human resistance quickly by targeting their homeworld directly. His massive Harvest ships moved toward Earth, expecting to overwhelm the primitive defenders with superior firepower and technology. The Vorthak had never lost a Harvest operation, and Thex was confident this would be no different, but as his fleet approached the inner solar system, they discovered that the humans had turned their entire home region into a fortress. Earth was surrounded by layers of defensive platforms, hidden weapons, and converted civilian ships that had been transformed into military vessels. Commander Lim Dayun stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Indomitable, a battle cruiser that had been built in just 2 weeks by combining parts from 12 different vessels. Her crew was made up of cargo pilots, mining engineers, and civilian volunteers who had never fought in space before but were determined to protect their world. The Earth Defense Fleet was not like any military force the Vorthak had ever encountered. Instead of matching uniforms and standardized equipment, every human ship was different. Some were military vessels, others were converted cargo haulers and passenger liners held together with welding and determination. When the Vorthak bioships began their attack, they launched living projectiles that were designed to bore through metal hulls and release biological weapons inside enemy vessels. The aliens expected this to disable human ships quickly, but instead they discovered something unexpected. The humans had been preparing for biological warfare. Darnam Seok-Jin had analyzed samples from the New Dawn data and developed countermeasures for Vorthak bioweapons. Every human ship carried chemical neutralizers, radiation scrubbers, and emergency medical supplies. More importantly, the human ships were designed to keep fighting even when heavily damaged. Mining vessels were built to operate in dangerous environments, and cargo haulers were constructed to survive asteroid impacts. The Vorthak bioweapons damaged human ships but did not stop them. Lim Dayun led her squadron through the orbital debris field around Earth using the wreckage and construction materials as cover. Her ships moved in unpredictable patterns, hiding behind space stations and emerging to fire at alien vessels before disappearing again. The Vorthak bioships were enormous and powerful, but they were also slow and difficult to maneuver. In crowded space, the Earth orbital region was filled with satellites, construction equipment, and floating debris that made it hard for large vessels to navigate safely. Human fighter pilot Han Ji-sung discovered that the alien ships had predictable movement patterns because they were partially alive. The bioships responded to threats like living creatures, which meant their reactions could be anticipated if you understood their biology. Han flew a modified mining shuttle that had been equipped with military weapons and extra armor. His ship was tiny compared to the Vorthak vessels, but it was fast and maneuverable enough to dodge their organic projectiles. He led a squadron of similar small craft and hit and run attacks. The human pilots had learned something important about their enemies. The Vorthak bioships were designed to regenerate damage over time, but they could be overwhelmed if enough damage was inflicted quickly. The aliens had never faced opponents who concentrated their attacks on single targets. Lim Dayun coordinated her fleet to focus fire on individual Vorthak ships rather than spreading their attacks across the entire alien fleet. When 20 human vessels attacked one bioship simultaneously, the alien vessel could not heal fast enough to survive. The first major Vorthak bioship died in Earth orbit after being hit by converted cargo haulers. Armed with mining charges, industrial lasers, and improvised nuclear weapons, the massive alien vessel broke apart and its biological components began dissolving in the vacuum of space. War Commander Thex watched in shock as more of his Harvest ships were destroyed by the primitive human fleet. The aliens had expected to face desperate last stands and heroic sacrifices, but instead they encountered something much more dangerous: organized tactical intelligence. The humans were learning from every battle. They adapted their tactics based on what worked and abandoned strategies that failed. Human engineers like Park So-ra worked around the clock to modify weapons and develop new countermeasures against Vorthak technology. During one battle, a damaged human ship rammed directly into a Vorthak biovessel at maximum speed. The impact killed Both crews, but the humans had loaded their ship with radioactive mining waste that contaminated the alien vessel and prevented it from regenerating. This gave other human commanders an idea if ramming attacks could disable Vorthak ships then old. Vessels that were too damaged to fight could still be useful as guided missiles. They began loading dying ships with explosives and sending them on suicide runs. The Vorthak had never encountered opponents who were willing to sacrifice their own vessels to destroy enemy ships. Their previous victims had always tried to preserve their military assets for as long as possible. The human willingness to trade ships for tactical advantage was completely alien to them. Dr. Nam Seok Jin made another important discovery while studying captured Vorthak technology. The bioships were controlled by organic neural networks that could be disrupted by specific electromagnetic frequencies. Human industrial equipment could be modified to generate these frequencies. Soon human ships were broadcasting signals that interfered with Vorthak ship controls. The alien vessels began having difficulty coordinating their attacks, and some bioships even started attacking each other when their neural networks became confused. The battle for Earth orbit became a grinding war of attrition. The Vorthak had superior individual ships, but the humans had superior numbers, tactics, and most importantly, a desperate determination to survive. The aliens had never faced prey that fought back with such intelligence and creativity. As more Vorthak ships were destroyed, War Commander Vex realized he was facing something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans were not just resisting, they were actually winning battles against forces that should have been able to crush them easily. The harvest operation that should have taken a few days had stretched into weeks. The bioships that survived were damaged, and their crews were demoralized by fighting an enemy that refused to behave like proper prey. The Vorthak Empire had never experienced anything like this on Earth. Admiral Yoon monitored the battle and knew that humanity had achieved something impossible. They had proven that the Vorthak were not invincible. The alien ships could be damaged, destroyed, and defeated by opponents who were clever enough and determined enough to find their weaknesses. But the real victory was not just military, it was psychological. For millions of years, the Vorthak had maintained their empire through fear and the belief that resistance was hopeless. Now, for the first time, species across the galaxy were hearing reports that someone had fought back and won. The news spread through alien communication networks and prisoner camps throughout Vorthak space. For the first time in galactic history, the harvested species began to believe that their oppressors could be defeated. The humans had done more than save their own world. They had lit a fire of rebellion that would spread across the galaxy and burn down an empire that had seemed eternal. The Vorthak had made the greatest mistake in their species' history. They had awakened not just humanity, but hope itself. War Commander Vex sent desperate messages to his superiors requesting massive reinforcements. He no longer believed that the harvest of humanity would be quick or easy. The humans had proven to be unlike any species the Vorthak had ever encountered. They were going to fight for every planet, every moon, and every asteroid in their system, and from what Vex could see, they were very good at fighting. The war reached its turning point when Admiral Yoon made a decision that shocked even her own commanders. She ordered the entire human fleet to abandon the defense of Earth and launch a massive assault on the Vorthak homeworld. The plan was called Operation Prometheus, and it would either end the war or destroy humanity completely. Fleet Admiral Park Hyun-woo led the assault force aboard the dreadnought Retribution, a massive warship built by combining human engineering with captured Vorthak biotechnology. The ship was a hybrid monster that represented everything humanity had learned about fighting the aliens. The assault fleet included not just human vessels, but ships crewed by liberated aliens who had joined the resistance. Every species that had suffered under Vorthak rule was represented in the armada that headed toward the alien homeworld. Their combined knowledge of Vorthak technology and weaknesses made them far more dangerous than humans. Alone Captain Lee Sun-mi commanded a mixed squadron that included human fighters, alien vessels, and hybrid ships, created by combining different technologies. Her pilots came from a dozen different species, but they all shared the same determination to end the Vorthak Empire forever. The journey to the Vorthak homeworld took 3 months, during which time the alien leadership tried desperately to recall their harvest fleets from across the galaxy. but the rebellions had spread so widely that most Vorthic forces were trapped fighting local uprisings and could not return home. War Commander Thex received orders to abandon the human harvest and return to defend the homeworld, but by then his fleet was too damaged and depleted to make a difference. The humans had destroyed or captured most of his bioships and infected others with neural viruses. When the human-led armada arrived at the Vorthic homeworld, they found a system that had been fortified for millions of years. The aliens had surrounded their planet with orbital platforms, biomechanical defense stations, and automated weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets, but they had never prepared for an attack by enemies who understood their technology. The liberated aliens in the human fleet knew the weaknesses of every Vorthic defense system, and the humans had developed new weapons specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. Dr. Shin-Mi Young had worked with alien scientist refugees to create the most devastating weapon in human history, a neural virus that could spread through the Vorthic bioneural command network and turn their own defenses against them. The virus was loaded into special missiles that could penetrate Vorthic bio-armor and inject the infectious agent directly into the alien neural networks. Once infected, the biomechanical systems began receiving conflicting commands and started attacking each other. The battle for the Vorthic homeworld became the largest space engagement in galactic history. Millions of ships fought in the space around the alien planet while the neural virus spread through their defense networks, causing massive systems failures. Fleet Admiral Park coordinated the human attack from the Retribution, while alien refugee commanders led their own species in assaults on specific targets. The diversity of the attacking fleet made it impossible for the Vorthic to predict or counter their tactics. Captain Lee Sun-Mi led her mixed squadron in a desperate assault on the primary orbital command station. Her ships faced massive biomechanical guardians that were the size of small moons, but the neural virus had begun affecting even these ancient weapons. The Vorthic threw everything they had at the attackers, including world-killer weapons that had been held in reserve for millions of years. Massive bioships larger than human cities emerged from hidden bases and joined the battle, but the attackers had advantages the Vorthic had never faced before. The liberated species knew every secret of the alien technology, and the humans had proven to be masters at turning captured equipment into new weapon systems. Major On Wu Jin led commando teams in boarding actions against Vorthic command ships. His soldiers included humans and aliens, working together to capture critical facilities. The diversity of the assault teams made them unpredictable and deadly. The turning point came when Dr. Shin-Mi Young successfully infected the central bioneural command network that controlled all Vorthic military forces. The virus spread through their communication systems, causing command ships to attack their own allies. Vorthic bioships began firing on each other as their infected neural networks received contradictory orders. The carefully coordinated alien defense collapsed into chaos as friendly fire destroyed more ships than the human attack. Fleet Admiral Park watched from the Retribution as the Vorthic homeworld defenses turned against themselves. Orbital platforms fired on surface installations, while bioships attacked the very stations they were supposed to protect. The ancient Vorthic empire that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years was destroying itself. The neural virus had turned their greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. Their biological technology could not distinguish between friend and enemy once infected. War Commander Thex made one final desperate attempt to save his species by leading the remaining loyal ships in a direct assault on the human flagship, but his biovessel had been damaged by friendly fire, and his crew was demoralized by watching their empire collapse. Captain Lee Sun-Mi intercepted Thex's ship with her mixed squadron, and in the final battle of the war, the alien commander, who had harvested 43 worlds, was defeated by a human pilot flying a ship crewed by species he had tried to destroy. The sky above the Vorthic homeworld burned with the wreckage of their once invincible fleet bioships that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. Drifted as lifeless hulks, while the neural virus continued spreading through their networks. On the planet's surface, Vorthic civilians watched their orbital defenses destroy each other, while alien ground forces led by liberated prisoners landed to secure key facilities. The empire that had seemed eternal was ending in a single day. Admiral Park broadcast a message to the entire galaxy from the bridge of the Retribution. The Vorthak Empire was finished species. Across the galaxy were free to determine their own destiny without fear of harvest. The Age of Terror was over, but even as victory was declared, Admiral Park knew that the real work was just beginning. The galaxy had to be rebuilt, and the surviving Vorthak had to be dealt with. Some wanted revenge, others wanted justice, and a few wanted reconciliation. The war was won, but peace would be much harder to achieve. The humans had proven they could destroy an empire, but now they had to prove they could build something better in its place. The fires of war were ending, but the light of hope was just beginning to shine across a galaxy that was finally free. 5 years after the fall of the Vorthak Empire, the galaxy was still learning how to live without fear. Commander Kim Yujin stood in the conference hall of New Geneva Station, the first interspecies diplomatic facility built in neutral space. She had been chosen as Earth's first galactic ambassador because of her role in liberating alien prisoners during the war. The Free Species Alliance was humanity's greatest achievement, but also its greatest challenge. Dozens of alien races were working together to build a new galactic government, but each species had different ideas about justice, law, and the future of their shared galaxy. Some species wanted to execute every surviving Vorthak as punishment for millions of years of harvesting. Others believed that revenge would make them no better than their former oppressors. A few alien races even argued that the Vorthak should be given a chance to reform and join the new galactic community. Kim Yujin found herself mediating between species that had very different cultures and values. The Zealothi were a hive mind that made decisions collectively, while the Corven were fierce individualists who distrusted any form of group authority. The humans had to help these different species find common ground. The biggest challenge was deciding what to do with Vorthak technology. The biomechanical systems that had been used for harvesting could also be used for healing, construction, and exploration. Many alien scientists wanted to study and adapt Vorthak biotechnology for peaceful purposes. Dr. Nam Seok Jin led the Galactic Technology Council, which was responsible for ensuring that former Vorthak technology was only used for beneficial purposes. His team included scientists from 20 different species working together to transform weapons of war into tools of peace. The neural control systems that had once commanded harvest fleets were being adapted to help paralyzed beings walk again. The bio-armor that had protected Vorthak ships was being used to create environmental suits for exploring dangerous worlds. The organic computers were being programmed to help manage complex ecosystems, but the most important work was happening on former Vorthak worlds where new colonies were being established. Colony Supervisor O. Min Seo led one of the first integrated settlements where humans, former prisoners, and even reformed Vorthak citizens worked together to build a new society. The colony of New Hope was located on a world that had once been a Vorthak military base. The biomechanical structures had been converted into homes, hospitals, and schools where children from different species learned together. The sight of human children playing with alien youngsters gave everyone hope for the future. O. Min Seo faced daily challenges in managing a community where different species had different needs, requirements, and social customs. The Vorthak who had joined the colony were struggling to understand concepts like individual freedom and personal choice after millions of years of hive mind control. Some of the reformed Vorthak, like the former sub-coordinator who now called himself Vex 7, were genuinely trying to make amends for their species' crimes. He worked in the colony medical center using his knowledge of biotechnology to help heal injuries and diseases, but integration was not easy. Many alien refugees had lost family members to Vorthak harvests and found it difficult to trust or forgive their former oppressors. There were arguments, fights, and sometimes violence as different groups struggled to live together. The humans found themselves playing the role of mediators and peacekeepers, not because they were naturally diplomatic, but because they had been the ones to prove that different species could work together to achieve impossible goals. Captain Kim Tae-ho had returned from his long exile as a prisoner of war to find that the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The old man now served as director of the Galactic Memorial Project, which was documenting the history of harvested species and preserving their cultures. The memorial stations built throughout the galaxy contained the preserved knowledge, art, and history of hundreds of extinct civilizations. Each station was a reminder of what had been lost and a promise that such losses would never happen. Again, Kim Tae-ho often walked through the memorial halls looking at displays showing species that had died. Centuries before humans ever reached the stars, he felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that humanity had inherited the task of ensuring their memory survived. His granddaughter Min-young was part of the first generation to grow up in the post-Vorthek galaxy. She attended school with alien children, learned multiple languages, and saw interspecies cooperation as normal rather than miraculous. One day she asked her grandfather why the Vorthek had thought humanity would not fight back. Kim Tae-ho considered the question carefully before answering. The aliens had made the same mistake that many powerful beings throughout history had made. They had confused human love of peace with weakness. They had not understood that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be absolutely ruthless in its defense. They thought that because humans preferred cooperation, they would not fight when their survival was threatened. The Vorthek had believed that advanced species naturally became passive and easy to harvest. They had never encountered a species that combined intelligence, technology, and the willingness to fight with everything they had when protecting their families and their future. Kim Tae-ho explained that humans had not wanted war, but when war came, they had proven to be very good at it. More importantly, they had shown that fighting for the right reasons could lead to something better than what existed before. The Free Species Alliance was not perfect. It struggled with political disagreements, resource conflicts, and the challenge of governing dozens of different species with different needs, but it represented something that had never existed before in galactic history: voluntary cooperation between equals. The galaxy was no longer divided between predators and prey. Instead, it was becoming a community where different species could contribute their unique strengths to shared goals. Exploration, scientific research, and cultural exchange replaced harvesting and conquest. As Kim Tae-ho watched his granddaughter play with her alien friends, he realized that humanity's greatest victory had not been military. It had been proving that there was an alternative to the cycle of fear and domination that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. The sky no longer burned with the fires of war. Instead, it was filled with the lights of ships carrying explorers, artists, and scientists to new worlds. The darkness of the Vorthak age had been replaced by the dawn of something unprecedented, a galaxy where every species was free to choose its own destiny among the stars.